welcome to another episode of How We See It 3 podcast, the podcast where we discuss positive political commentary in community, entertainment, and sports with everyday people. My everyday people are with me today right now. That's B.E. and J.T. J.T., how you doing?
Doing all right, man.
B, how you doing?
3.
Three, you doing 3?
3.
You good?
We're talking about mental. No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing fine.
You're doing fine.
I'm doing well.
We
Thank you.
have a special show today. We're going to be talking about America's mental health, and we're going to start talking about the weak-minded people versus mental illness. Here's the thing: are we too quick to accept weak-minded people opinions as mental health issues?
Well, I'm going to take this.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
First, we're going to have to define what's weak-minded. Right? So, What would weak-minded be?
Well, it's
lacking determination, emotional strength, or intellectual capacity is the Webster's
dictionary of weak-minded
definition.
So someone who has a few issues in their life and says, hey, you know, obviously things are not going my way, so therefore I'm depressed, and says I have mental issues and wants mental health. Does that affect the way we really perceive mental health, people who have really serious mental health issues? Because a lot of times we see people, you know, we say, hey, look, you know, you got a nice house, you got a nice car. How could you be depressed? How could you have mental illness? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Versus,
well, there's two questions there. So let's address the first one. Is that how we perceive, people with mental illness or mental health issues? There's already a huge stigma around it, and that's why a lot of people try to hide it,
right?
Or minimalize it. So that's why, you see a lot of people who don't go to therapists. You've heard me say many times, if you go to the doctor once a year to get a checkup on your body, you should go to get a therapist once a year to get a checkup on your mind. Your mind is just as important as your heart.
Right.
Right. So and then your second question is, with the nice car and the career, at least for me, how I feel about the whole situation is we have things that each person has core beliefs,
right.
Whether it's really stitched or, inside of your psyche, either, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy, things like that.
But see, are those mental health issues? So it leads to mental health issues. What I'm saying to you is that someone who doesn't have a job or doesn't have the job that they want, and they get a little depressed about it, or things are not going their way, and they decide to say, oh, you know what? Obviously, I'm depressed. So I have mental health issues. Is that? For me, it actually takes away from people who actually really have serious issues that we have to deal with and address. We talk about it as we continue through this show. We'll talk about a lot of things, celebrities and politicians who have mental health issues. How we overlook them because there's a stigma attached to it. But there are people now saying that, just because I don't have the job I want, my life's not ideal, I have some depression. So how do you see that?
Well, I mean, there's something wrong, obviously, with the fact that if somebody is going to fake it or use depression as a reason to not do something,
right.
to not go out and find a job. You can say those things. Those are kind of crummy things these days. I mean, you need a job, to survive, that sort of thing. So I think, that is a weak-minded person if they're truly actually pretending or going to use this as an excuse when there are people out there suffering. Depression is real. Now, mental illness is not only depression, but that's one of the things you probably could fake if you wanted to fake it. But I'm not saying that you should, but there's a lot of other...
So depression is a mental illness.
It's absolutely a mental illness.
It's a very serious one.
Absolutely. And you'd be surprised at how many people suffer from it.
Right.
Millions.
So the problem is that, I guess maybe the point I'm trying to make is that if you seem depressed because things don't go your way, you're definitely not mentally ill. It's just that maybe you need to pick yourself up and work a little harder to achieve the things you want.
It's your coping mechanisms because
Because by the way, just so you know, things don't go my way all the time.
Yeah, so that's
you know what I'm saying. I don't have things. Most of the time, things don't go my way.
You must have really great coping mechanisms. You have things that you learn to deal in a healthy way. Not a lot of people have those things, or a good support system.
Right.
If you don't have those things, then you're going to spiral to depression, and depression can lead to anxiety. It can lead to suicidal thoughts, even suicidal attempts. It can lead to a lot of different things.
And we're using the word depressed or depression, right? I mean, I guess you could say, you use the term, I'm depressed because this didn't happen. Does it truly mean you're clinically depressed?
Right.
Or are you just expressing that you feel a certain way about the fact that you lost your job,
I
right?
think it's people saying they feel a certain way.
And that they're like depressed and I need medication kind of thing? Or
I think it's
I'm
just
depressed.
I think for a lot of people it's just a slang word to say I'm sad.
And right now, there is a acceptance more now than ever has before about mental health, and that you have to be mentally healthy, and it's not a shame. You shouldn't be ashamed to have mental health issues. So I think a lot of people say, hey, things are not going my way. I don't have the job I want. I don't have the car I want. I am depressed. This is why I'm depressed.
Well, you shouldn't be ashamed. Honestly, you shouldn't be ashamed. But I can tell you, there's still a stigma out there for somebody who thinks that when you look at me or whatever, and you think I'm on top of the world or whatever. You don't know that's what you see. On the outside, right?
I think you're
on top of the world.
Yeah.
But you don't know that that's truly what I am, right? It could be a facade, right? It could, So I'm just saying that.
So you bought a fancy car to make people look past your depression?
That doesn't define me.
And that is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is another sign of depression, of just spending a lot of money on a lot of different materialistic things.
Right.
That could, coupled with, you say, isolation and a lot of different other like signs, that is depression, because you try to fill a void with material things. You'll buy like the big TV, the fancy car, the gadgets, and all these other things to try to get monetary happiness. Because you get those dumps of serotonin in your brain.
See, that's why I'm not mentally depressed, because I have a small TV, small car. I don't have a fancy car. I have a small mind, clearly, too.
But I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's a beautiful thing that people are talking about it, because even minorities, even the African American community, it's never been taught to.
It's ran rampant. If you go to a therapist and you're African American, you tell somebody, say, hey, man, that little Bobby's crazy.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm saying?
I could not have that conversation with my father, who is 83 years old, about mentally, it just doesn't exist, right? In terms of like, oh, Dad, I need to go talk to somebody because I'm fit. What? Don't tell me. I mean, because I don't either believe it, or we don't get that way, or things like that.
No, I got you. I'm gonna give you the last word on this issue before we go into our next subject, which is we're gonna talk more about politicians who have mental health issues. So I'll give you the last word on this particular subject: weak-minded versus mental illness.
I will say I don't like the term weak-minded. I will say that. Any person should go get mental health help. Depression, anxiety, a lot of those things are very serious. And again, if you can go get your body checked once a year, you can go get your mind checked once a year.
Awesome. That's how we see it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to How We See It 3 podcast. We're back with BE and JT, and we're here to discuss political health. Politicians, are they mentally healthy? Or, right now, currently we have some people in the White House that we don't think is all that mentally stable. But let me ask this question: do you have to be a little bit on the outs to get into politics, because it's such a dirty, nasty business?
I think you got to be a little bit of a narcissist to be a politician.
Are we willing to overlook some of their mental deficiencies because they are serving the public and it's such a harsh job?
No. We need to look at mental health in this country. We don't put a lot of attention or emphasis or medical care or anything into mental health. So if you're mentally ill, then as a politician, you need help.
But some of the stuff politicians do, just think about it. Some of the stuff that's come out of the current administration's mouth doesn't seem like it's sane. It's all in left field. Fake news. Attacking people, attacking this person.
Narcissism, though.
Yeah, I don't.
So that's not mental illness.
No.
It depends on how bad it is.
That's just someone who has a problem with being honest or being trustworthy.
It's somebody who's so much about themselves. They're just
lack empathy. They lack a lot of social cues.
Right. It's all about me. I'm the most important thing in the world. I'm the, that kind of thing. So I'm the most powerful. I think that, that would give somebody who has mental health a bad name, really. I mean,
so that's what I was talking,
mental illness, I'm sorry.
As I was talking about earlier, weak-minded people, is that considered someone's weak-minded?
Well, I would think that now there's some weak-minded stuff going on there, I think, in that.
So let me ask you this question. As you both sit here and look at me with this serious look on your face, is a politician who was accused of sexual harassment or misconduct says, I'm not stepping down, even though they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. What's that say about them? And what's that say about the state of the way we perceive politicians in this country?
Yeah, look at the laws. It's the laws. The laws protect a lot of things like that. And not saying protect the person, but it protects the position.
Because you have to be. I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make is that politicians, it takes either a tough skin, a tough exterior, but it also takes people, because there's a lot of things going on in politics that you can't imagine. Politicians do stuff that most regular people don't do.
Sure.
And is that because they have some sort of mental deficiency, or they just have lack of empathy or lack of self-respect?
I mean, I think it could be a lot of those things. I'm sure there are people that could be diagnosed, these politicians who may not have been, but could potentially be diagnosed with the mental illness. Maybe they just aren't. See, and again, it's us trying to judge whether or not, now it's what we define as mental illness. Are we saying such and such is bipolar? Do we know? I mean, are we saying such and such is depressed? That's a mental illness, right? Are we saying such and such is a paranoid schizophrenic? So, I think that it's a combination of those things. And there are people who may not have been diagnosed, but could potentially have a serious mental illness. Now, there are some professions, not only politics, that you think you've got to be even therapists, to listen to this stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
So,
Your therapist has to have a therapist.
So we're going to go to a break real quick, but when you come back, I'm going to ask, I'm pose this question to you, is that if you are accused of something and you decide not to resign, are you fit to stay in office, even if you're accused? We'll be right back after this message. The point I was trying to make is that welcome back. So, as I was saying before we went to break, is that if you're a politician and you're accused of something, of a crime, of the nature of, say, sexual harassment, are you fit to continue to work under that duress? Because here's what happens is the media is going to constantly barrage you or berate you or constantly write negative things about you, and you still have to do your job and you have to perform. Can you perform? Mentally, can you stay focused and do your job with all that pressure?
Well, at least for me, accusations and let's say found guilty are two different things. So now for me, if you're guilty of it, you shouldn't hold office and you should resign immediately. Accusations, depending on how severe or what they are, right? Because accusations are just accusations. We live in a country proven innocent until guilty. Unfortunately,
innocent to proven guilty.
Sorry, that's what I thought I said that. Innocent
until close,
whatever.
Okay.
Anyways,
we know
we live in a society where it's kind of opposite, you know. But accusations are just accusations.
Because really, the media will make you guilty first.
Yes.
And then you got to prove yourself innocent.
Yes, and that's
now,
unfortunate.
Now here's the thing: can you operate? Can you mentally? My question to you: can you mentally stay focused?
I mean, it really depends on who you are, right? And what kind of, what's in your state of mind. I mean, are you somebody who thinks you're innocent? This person is lying. I'm just going to keep doing my job. So I'm focusing on that. So nothing is affecting me, right? This person is lying.
So what if you're guilty?
Oh, if you are guilty, I mean...
But you can't tell people you're guilty.
Well, no, I know. And so people can be very manipulative and continue to do their job, right? And I think it's some people who, again, we get back to narcissism, and people who think they're bigger than life, untouchable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So absolutely, I think people can function. That to me is a little different than... mentally ill? There could be something.
I'm not saying mentally ill. In that case, I'm not saying mentally ill. What I'm saying to you is that kind of pressure, you have to serve the public. Your job is to serve the community that you've been elected by to do your job.
Oh yeah.
And if you are under scrutiny, right now we have several people in Congress and even the president under scrutiny constantly.
Yeah.
And I find myself listening to reading his tweets and the president's tweets and other people's tweets. And I'm like, dude, this guy's not able to focus because he's focusing on this. He's focusing on this investigation. So he's not mentally prepared.
Well, the Supreme Court justice doesn't care that he was accused and went through, Senate hearings and all that kind of stuff, right?
But now he's got a lifetime appointment.
Well, sure.
So he doesn't have to worry about anything.
Well, yeah, but I think it really boils down to the mental threshold of the person. So everyone has a counter. You can only take so many punches until that clock resets and you're out, right? A lot of people would send their anxiety sky high. Right, that it was just impending doom, and you could totally tell. Other people where you get into the whole narcissism thing, like I'm too big to fail.
Yeah. What?
Okay, so you're too big to fail. Now that becomes not just a inability to do your job effectively, because now you're thinking about yourself.
Exactly.
You're now thinking about the community that you're serving.
Exactly.
So now it becomes sort of like, now I have a problem with your mental capability of holding the job and holding the office. So that's where I stand on that. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it.
It's like the whole kind of Enron type deal. We're too big to fail. We're too this. We're invincible.
But in a lot of cases, some things are too big to fail because they affect multiple groups of people.
Nothing's too big to fail.
Well, I don't know. I'm not a politician. I mean, I know GM and Chrysler, Ford or whatever it was, is too big to fail, and we saved them. And still look what they do, They're still sending jobs off to different countries. They're still sending,
because they're still very powerful.
laying people off, you know what I'm saying?
Putting nooses in there. There was the
break
lounges.
That's in Ohio, too.
Yeah.
So,
aren't you from Ohio?
I am from Ohio. Racism I grew up in that kind of bigotry and racism in Ohio. It's still to this day, it's actually something that people have to deal with. And I think politicians, let me ask this question to you. Let me pose this question to you. Do you think that politicians play to their base who have sort of mental health issues or are more mentally prone to see things their way than actually see the way things actually are?
You mean I've never seen a politician play to a mental health? Yeah.
Well, no,
that's because we don't really.
What I'm saying to you is that you got listen. You
mean like categorizing?
Right. So like say for instance, Trump's playing to some of his base. Some of his base is absolutely racist.
Okay.
I don't know if you can call racism as a mental disease, but I think it's a mental deficiency. Not to be able to respect people of all races and colors.
I mean, that's my only opinion. I'm not a licensed official, but I believe racism. I'm
going to go on record as saying that racism is a mental health disease. And if you're a racist, you're mentally ill. Again, I don't want to
do something about this mental health.
And listen, I don't want to, for people who are really mentally ill, have mental health issues. I don't want to downplay it and make fun of it. I'm just saying to you that I believe if you're a racist and you believe that Jews and African Americans, Italians and gays and lesbians can't be around you because you're superior, that's a mental deficiency. There's no question
because you believe it. Does it come from here or does it come from here? Right? I mean, it
has to.
It has to come from here.
Exactly.
It's taught.
No, I know. Absolutely. So that is your brain is what we're talking about.
Yeah, because even people who come from Klan family members, they grow up not to be Klan members because they understand that was wrong. They don't have that mental deficiency. They don't have that problem.
Yeah, but to go back to what you originally said, I think it's human nature to just speak for, like, say, looking at speaking to your base. Of course, you're going to find what we're like, what we like, and what we have in common, and we draw to that. That's just human nature. How our brain works. We categorize everything. Okay,
as we come to a close on this particular subject.
Yes.
Can we? Is mental health issues always going to be part of politics?
It needs to be.
Solving it or living with it?
Both.
Yes.
I think both.
It needs to be discussed.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah. No. I honestly think it's one of the areas that we just do not focus on in this country. There are things dogs are probably more important than mental health. And I love animals and I love dogs, but we love our animals in this country. It's $1 billion business.
So again, we're going to see a politician who we know that has some sort of mental illness and we're not going to challenge them. because it's too much of it's too big of a hassle? I'm just asking you.
Well, I mean, do we have that diagnosis? They were diagnosed as being.
No, but you can see him. So I mean, you can
you're
see.
just going to say this person is like.
I'm saying
bipolar.
He is exhibiting behaviors
of a bipolar
of a person that has some problems.
I'm gonna leave you guys on one last thing. One thing I learned from about mental health and everything else is that mind reading. We can't do mind reading,
and that
unless there's a official diagnosis. Then I don't want to generalize anything.
Right.
It's going to have to be the last word, but I'm going to tell you this. I think your behavior can set an example of what people perceive.
Yes.
We'll be right back after these messages. Thank you. Welcome back to How We See It 3. So, entertaining with health issues. Many celebrities, entertainers, musicians, actors, even football players, basketball players, sports stars, suffer from mental health issues, depression, anxiety. Some anxiety, some have committed suicide, some have taken their own, obviously taken their own lives. They've dealt with other family members taking their own lives. Are we putting too much pressure on celebrities to open up their life to us, to let us be part of their life? Are we the reason that celebrities have these problems? Because celebrities they'll tell you, I just want to act. I just want to play ball. I just want to sing. You know what I'm saying? But we want more. Media wants to get more to sell us as a public. Is it too much pressure?
In this day and age, I can see why a lot of it happens, because you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have a lot of these instant gratification things of updates of people's lives.
Social media stuff.
That's why you see a lot of celebrities that don't have it, Right. But with the ones that do, you're dealing with constant scrutiny, whether, or people following you, paparazzi. And that's when I was kind of said earlier, when you have these distorted thoughts that happen. So you say you have a movie or a TV show and, you don't, if I was famous, I would never look at my comments, but people do, you're only human to see what are people saying. And you start seeing these things scrolling down and down.
So you're doing this podcast right now and someone's watching it and says they don't like what you say and they start writing about it. You're not going to pay attention to that.
No.
You don't want to see if you target the right issue or you help someone?
There is a difference between criticism and just being negative.
Right.
I can take criticism, but when it's just saying, "Oh, I don't like the way his haircut looks," or he just talks sound, he has a weird voice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But there's two distinct factors, So over time, you start seeing that, and you start, if you're famous, it's going to lead you into a pattern of distorted thoughts, change in your core beliefs, a change in a lot of different things, and it sends people crashing.
So let me ask you, if you were a celebrity, or just say, for instance, someone writes something about you doing this podcast, would you read it? Would you read your critics? Would you read the comments?
Yes. I would. But
if someone says a bunch of negative things about you.
They're talking about me and stuff. It just, I'm not an insensitive person. I am a sensitive person.
So I don't like your earrings.
You cannot like them. That's why I love them.
And you don't care.
I love my earrings because I love my earrings. It's okay. I don't, I do know you, but, most of the people that would write about me, I don't know, so they don't really know me.
Right.
But I love owls. And,
So the celebrity that struggles with, a depression, anxiety, is that a pre-existing condition before they came into the business, or is it a factor that happens while they become a celebrity?
I say it's 50-50. It could happen when you're in, and it can happen before, and just people have different triggers, for certain things, and like I said earlier, when you get into a certain lifestyle or a certain thing, because you're like, I want to be a singer, and you actually get into the industry, and it's totally different than what you imagine to be, that could lead to depression because you have frustration, you have anger. There's a lot of different bundles up, and then when you stuff all that stuff.
But that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is that really depression?
Yes.
Because things don't go your way. Because I'm saying to you, things don't go my way all the time. Nothing. I trust me. I struggle with things all the time. But
What's
I'm
your
depressed
coping
about it.
skills
You have-
then?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's-
It's all about coping
It
skills.
is coping
If
mechanisms.
someone who does not
Absolutely.
have coping mechanisms and they just stuff it for years and years, then it starts
Absolutely.
manifesting as something different. Like I said, you start isolating yourself. You do start self-medicating. You do compulsive choices. I can't think of the
Yeah.
word, but self-medicating, alcohol, drug.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that it turns into, and that's real depression at its core. When you start really going out, not like going outside anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You curled up in a ball, fetal position, not moving. Honestly, that's not a normal kind of thing to isolate yourself constantly, continuously, that kind of thing, right? These are some warning signs. So in your question about did they come into, their success, with a mental illness, yes, I think they probably have, or have come in with it. Some.
So our passion, our desire to get a picture of their firstborn child, or to see the photos of their wedding, that doesn't play a factor.
Well, that would make you mad. I mean, maybe it makes you annoyed. I don't know, not depressed, but maybe you're kind of intruding in my life, kind of thing.
In a way,
I don't know that would make me
take celebrity divorces. That could lead to spiraling just huge anxiety, social anxiety, because you're going through a divorce. You go down, say you just want to go to the grocery store because you need to eat, you need to buy some groceries, right? And say you don't want to pay someone to go get that for you, have it delivered. You see a magazine and it's you and your ex-spouse, like on the front page. That's not good,
But that's part of being a celebrity.
Yes,
that's part of being a celebrity.
That's why they have celebrity therapists to handle famous issues.
Well, let's take Kate Spade. Rest in peace, Kate Spade, right? Everybody would think Kate Spade has everything.
Right.
We don't really know. I mean, she committed suicide, right? And she wrote her daughter a letter saying this was your dad's fault, kind of thing. So she was going through some marital trouble, right? But we think on the outside, Kate Spade had it all. But this was someone who killed themselves based on a relationship.
But that to me doesn't seem mental illness.
She was
that means that
there was something underlying.
That says to me that she's placing blame on somebody.
Yeah, I mean
that means that she's doing this out of anger. She's doing it out of spite.
Well, and
you know what I'm saying? Because there's people like Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah,
for instance,
right.
Those people struggle with emotional issues and struggle with their job and stuff like that. So, I get there's a difference there, but my real question is that, and the question I pose to both of you is that are we responsible for, as the public, and all the demands we put on it? Are we responsible for that? We're responsible for their downside.
Everyone's responsible for their own mental health. We all have the paths that we choose to go down.
Right.
We choose to go through programs that can help you deal with those things. We can't.
A lot of people don't choose that, though.
A lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't choose that.
But there's a lot of great programs.
Right.
They're pricey. Right. They're very pricey. Right. But there's
so when we come back on the other side of this, we'll talk about that priciness and pricing other people out of mental health, group settings and group counseling and stuff like that. So this is something we need to talk about. Yeah. We'll be right back. This is how we see it. 3. Welcome back to How We See It 3 podcasts. I'm going to be going back to JT to talk about finances.
Yeah.
If you are poor, okay, obviously celebrities can afford to have a celebrity. You see people all the time, Lindsay Lohan, other people, when they have nervous breakdown. Britney Spears, when she had the meltdown, she went to a special retreat, a special Malibu Center or wherever it was called, and she got special treatment. Now, if you don't have the resources to go, you said they were pricey. Is that a problem in our society?
Well, yeah, because don't get me started on healthcare. The whole healthcare system at one is a racketeering scheme to me.
Right.
But it's a huge issue because there's not a lot for people who don't have those resources. The alternatives, you can probably, if you have a church, talk to your pastor, reverend, rabbi.
Sometimes your pastor is a predator himself.
That's a whole nother beast within itself.
We'll do that. We'll do another podcast on that later.
But it's the good thing is we have websites, that you can be a part of, like a community. I know Reddit has a whole mental health subreddit where people talk about depression, people talk about suicidal thoughts, all these things. So I even researched it and went on it. I didn't sign up, but I looked at it, and just kind of see. There's a whole community of people that they talk about the issues. So I mean, as long as you have a laptop, and Starbucks Wi-Fi, you can pretty much, kind of.
But you're not you're not getting a full gamut of treatment if you're doing it by yourself, isolated. If you're doing it by yourself on the laptop.
I'm kind of reading WebMD.
You worked in health in the mental health field. What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, don't get me started on it. It's almost like
I want to get you started.
Get me started, okay? It's almost like you're being punished for having a quote mental illness. It costs too much, or get yourself together. It's almost like you're being told it's not important, and if there is something wrong with you, you got to pay up the whatever wazoo to get better. Therapists, same kind of way, right? Some therapists don't take insurance and get paid by the hour. We're talking $150 an hour. Now, the other thing that I think is important about what we're talking about here is, and I appreciate JT and what he's saying. He's talking about he's gone to Reddit and he's looked up things about depression. It's about admitting that it's okay to ask for help. Need help if there's something going on in your mind that just seems wrong and off or different, that you're curled up in a ball somewhere in a fetal position and that you need some help. That's the other thing. It's this negative stigma, or just a stigma, that we have about mental health.
So if you're saying $150 an hour and you are a $15 an hour employee, you'd have to work a whole day to pay for 1 hour of that particular therapist. Of a therapist.
Or there's programs where there's a 30-day program and you're paying $6,000 for just 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the math, you know?
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, right?
We should do a mental health podcast.
Well, why don't we do that?
People call in and charge nothing,
why don't we do that?
The problem I see is that you guys touched on a couple issues, and I was trying to remember in my head as we go along. Is that obviously the money's a big factor. It's about admitting that you have an issue and seeking out. So if you are married or are you in a relationship where there's not resources, okay, and how do you get mental help, especially if you don't want to tell your spouse? And I pose this, is that why celebrities sometimes take their own life, because they don't want to admit it to people that they have a problem? Or they can't admit it to their friends and family, because you should see the warning signs. I mean, you would think you see warning signs, because people say, I didn't even know that person's going to kill them. They didn't even look sick. They didn't even look ill.
So let's tackle.
So how do you talk about it with your spouse first?
Okay. So I was like, let's handle each question. So how do you talk about it? About any serious health issue? You would talk to your spouse about your heart. If you're having heart problems or you need heart surgery, right? Your heart is just as important as this. All right. So if your spouse is not understanding, and if your spouse is like, well, I can't deal with this, then you're with the wrong spouse. Like, mental health is just as serious as any other heart attack, because when you have, let's just use an example, someone with suicidal thoughts, right? Right, someone with a suicidal thought, right, and actually does an attempt and fails. That is like equivalent to, no offense against anyone who had heart attacks, but that is a mental heart attack, right? Because you crumbled, you failed over, not necessarily you failed, but you crumbled under a lot of different things, and that takes a lot of courage to admit and to seek help.
So if you don't try to commit suicide, how do you tell your spouse? What I'm saying to you, your spouse may think you're crazy. And you don't want your spouse to think you're crazy.
It's the wrong person for you.
How do you deal with that?
Sure.
But relationships are like that. Relationships are very much like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't want your spouse to think bad of you or think down of you.
So you're playing some role, or you're doing something, you're holding something back because you don't want your spouse to know the real you, or whatever, not the real you, but necessarily what's going on with you, right? So when you come home from work, do you spouses talk about things? You talk about how your day was?
A lot of people don't talk, man.
Black people don't talk.
A lot of people don't talk.
Sorry, black people. I'm sorry, my bad. Black people don't talk. My bad.
A lot of people don't talk.
So I don't know how you would get to where you need to get, because if somebody is not a therapist and not examining you and seeing, I mean, how you just sit next to each other watching the Late Late Show or whatever, right? And
I just think any decent any decent person, whether if you think the other person is mean or not, any person with any type of morale or moral compass, or you want to call it, if someone came to them like, look, I think there's something wrong mentally, I'm having depression.
You hear about it all the time, though. It's the hardest thing to discuss issues with your spouse.
Because
especially if you notice something, to go to your spouse and tell me, I think you need therapy. So listen, I'm at the end of the day. I really appreciate this conversation. It was really great, this particular issue. So we'll be right back. This is How We See It.
3.
Welcome back to How We See It 3 podcasts. Right now we're going to talk about loneliness.
Who's lonely?
Are you lonely? No, a recent study showed that the more you use social media, the more lonely you get. My question to you is, let me say this to you. Nearly half of all Americans say they feel alone. Is loneliness a form of mental health?
It's not a form of mental health issue. At least I don't think it is. It can contribute to mental health issues. Right. Going back to what you said, people with social media. Yeah, I feel one of the biggest things why I don't really have it. I have maybe one, right? Like I don't really use the other. Is that social media is everyone's highlight reels. Social media has turned everyone comparing each other's lives, right?
Right. But that's Facebook.
No, that's everything.
It's Instagram, but that's not necessarily Twitter. Not necessarily, other.
Well, yeah, people like just hopped on a private jet.
Yeah.
Twitter, you know what I mean? Like it's everyone's highlight reel. So of course you're going to develop depression or disdain anything about your life because you look at someone else's. Like you like my in my age bracket, you're supposed to have buy a house now, be married, have kids, and do all the other things, and you don't have these things in your age bracket. It leads to things.
Okay, so here's the UK. The UK. They take loneliness so serious that they have a loneliness minister.
What is that? A political position?
That's a position where they're designed to actually go out and study how they can improve people's loneliness and help people, because loneliness turns into depression, turns into mental health issue, and they say loneliness loneliness kills people just as much as heart disease.
Oh, in the UK or just
in the world period, everywhere.
Well, I can honestly
just think about it. Just think about it for a second. When you spend time on Instagram or Twitter or whatever social media, you're doing that by yourself. No one's doing it with you. You're anticipating some likes and you're anticipating some friends to comment on your photo, and when they don't comment on it, like, what happened?
Then you have like younger, was it Gen Z, Gen X?
We're Gen X. Or I should say
Gen Z, the younger
under the. I'm sorry.
But
Gen X.
they'll delete and repost things the same over and over again because they didn't get enough likes. And what does that say about someone's self-esteem? You know what I mean? That plays a part as well. You know, I mean, correct me, I forgot. I believe it's Google. They have a CHO, Chief Happiness Officer. I mean, happiness and loneliness. Those. You know, like we're naturally we're mammals, we're animals, right? We look for like-minded things. We look for companionship. It's written in our DNA. It's just how we are.
So how do you feel?
Well, I certainly cannot use social media. Because I don't use it enough to even equate it with loneliness.
I noticed you have like 5 friends.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I need classes and courses on every social media platform.
Right.
Ask JJ, I don't know how to use it. I've asked you to.
Right.
So that doesn't equate to the loneliness that I see. And I'm in the age bracket that I should be married.
Don't put your business in the street, girl. Don't put your business in the street.
If you see daily reminders of that, you start questioning: Did I make the right choices? Did I do it? You know,
you start past that. But I get you.
So you believe it's a fact. The more you use social media, the more lonely you get.
Yeah. Why do you think? Craig, I forgot his name, but one of Facebook's engineers, the head guy, he left because he didn't agree in the direction it was going. He said it's poisoning America. He said, I don't even let my kids use it. it's designed to trigger all these things in your mind that when you get likes, you're excited and you want to get more and more and more and more. They designed it that way.
You don't have to like me.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
What? Yeah, I don't have very many likes. I don't have very many.
I like you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll be one of your 5 friends.
Because the other 4 are my nieces and nephews.
all your family members. You know what I'm saying? So how do you treat social media? And people who say, hey, how come you don't have more? Because I can tell you, I only have a Facebook page only, so relatives that live in a different state can see my family. Now, first of all, I don't really care if they see my family. If you don't call me and have pictures, and I don't send you pictures, then obviously you don't need to see my family. But I do it because people say, "Oh, put a picture of your baby on there, your grandbaby."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So how do you treat social media?
I don't really. I'll do one better. Is that I have a very small group of friends that I see when I see. Right. And we're good friends, college friends that you don't have to talk for 5 months, and when you finally talk, everything's cool. So. One of the things that I've heard, and I said, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. But you know what I mean? And I can make that distinction.
Right.
And it's kind of where the difference is I'm alone, meaning alone and by myself, meaning there's not somebody who's going to be knocking on, somebody who I'm holding hands with every day or whatever, coming over and that sort of thing.
No bumping ground in your house.
Well, look, man, don't put my stuff out there. I thought you were just listen. Look, hey,
I'm just asking you.
That's a reference to R. Kelly. That's one of his songs. Don't give us that's a whole nother.
No reference to R. Kelly here. That's a whole other podcast.
But what I think what she's trying to get at is that you can feel loneliness. You can be at a party, or you can be anywhere at the mall with a group of people, like you're really close friends, and you can feel alone. You can feel loneliness because. It's just the depression. There's a lot of different things, but there's a difference being alone. I like being alone.
Yeah.
Just put on some jazz or put on some blues or something and listen to it. That's cool. But feeling loneliness, that's a complete different thing.
Yeah, it's a state of mind.
I'm gonna give you the last word on loneliness.
It's a state of mind, right? It's a state of mind, and it's something that can lead to, bigger issues.
Right.
Complex issues, right? If you dwell in the fact that, I'm lonely, I don't have friends. I mean, you might be sitting at home, I'm alone, I don't have friends, and, that sort of thing. I don't dwell on those. I do have friends. It's a small group, but, I enjoy my alone time. So,
but you're alone, but not lonely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back. This is how we see it. Three. Welcome back to How We See It 3, the podcast. This is what we call After Hours. After Hours is a segment we do, and we talk about the things that we talked about at the beginning of the show. We recap everything we discussed. And also in this segment, we're going to introduce a friend of mine, Steve. He's going to talk about his experience with mental health issues in his family and how he's dealt with it over the years. So, B.
Yo.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to recap your thoughts for the last half hour, last hour.
Well, I don't know if I want to get into a deep monologue, but I think it's important, something that you said about dealing with mental illness in your family.
Right.
And if I can be a help to someone, I would love to do that. I was raised by someone who was the sweetest person in the world, but diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic.
Right.
And had her for 40 years of my life. This is my mother.
Right.
And I wouldn't trade her. And I wish I could go back and do things differently, because there were things that I did that because I was embarrassed by her behavior.
Right.
And, if I could have my mother passed, but, if I could do it again, I would choose her as my mother. Right. She was a highly functional, most loving, nurturing person. And I think that she would be proud of the children that she raised. It's highly emotional. And I just think that, we failed to help her as a family because we didn't believe that when we knew there was something wrong, but she was so functional that we thought we could just get through it, right? And I mean, she was a prisoner in her own body, in her own mind. Heard voices talking to her, used to think people were coming to kill her, used to think people were coming to kill me because she was raising me, So, I wouldn't, again, like I said, I wouldn't trade her. I would just want to do things differently. I would want to understand and believe that mental health illness is serious and it's not something to be ashamed of. And if you have a loving parent that is suffering from that, I regret not doing more for her. So I'll just go with that, it's a family.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's very personal, and to allow us into your life that way. Again, you and I talked about this earlier, and we've been friends for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And this is the first time we spoke of it was today. And it made me feel very, very close to you, in a way that I never felt before, because that's something that takes a lot to get off your chest, because you don't want to damage anything that you think people have of your mother, or damage or the view that people have. And then also you don't want to, feel guilty or feel responsible. But I said to you earlier that you were put in the situation with your mother for a reason. And she's looking down on you right now, very, very proud of what you're doing. And you've been given a voice now to share and talk this through with other people so that you can help other people. So
Absolutely.
I think it's a blessing. I feel blessed and honored to have you share that with me and share that with us and our audience, and I'm better because of it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I'd be willing to talk to anybody or help them if they're going through that.
You just
going
did
through something like that.
You just did. You just did. You shared
very
it.
Close family member. So
you just shared it, and I think at the end of the day, that's going to help a lot of people. If not this week, not next week, but someone will hear it and someone will see it, and you will help somebody, or someone will listen to it and say, "Hey, you need to go listen to this and take it on." You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing. I really, really appreciate it. JT, do you have something you want to reflect on the show about what we talked about and discussed, and because you were very passionate through the show about mental health issues, and you had a lot to say, and which was eye-opening for me, so I'm very anxious to hear if you had some comments to say.
I know this discussion is not going to remove the stigma, but I hope to, at least be one of the many voices, moving forward, to remove the stigma. It's a very serious thing, with someone who struggles with depression and anxiety like myself, I was diagnosed as a high functioning, that, and high functioning people, which, we have a higher tolerance for things. Right. We take on a lot more than the average person can handle, and we hide it better. Right. We can put on a performance. We're performers. Right. So that's kind of like the biggest thing was trying to deal with that, because high functioning people, when we do crumble, we feel weak, because we should be able to handle it, because put it on our shoulders, we'll keep trucking away. Yeah. But, I was lucky enough to kind of get into, to find the help that I need. Right. And I want people to be comfortable to get the help you need, whether you're Caucasian, Black, Asian,
And the sad part about it is that you were just saying, man, it's about money. Yeah. It's about resources. And it's unfortunate a lot of people don't have resources.
Yeah. But there's things out there for people, you know what I mean? Go online, research it, research local programs, group, or other different things that, cost minimal money that you can get something out of it, because looking through, I had zero coping mechanisms. When they asked me, so what do you do to cope? I take the punch and keep moving forward. Right. That's
what most people do.
Was what we were taught. Yeah. As to be African American males, you're taught to don't cry, man up. Yeah. People before you had it way worse. You don't have dogs sicked on you. You're not getting, shot with a fire hose. So what do you have to be able, So, okay, that's been my mantra in my mind for years and years. Right. So it just keeps trucking, but having mental illness or having like mental health issues, something that's severe, is a wide spectrum, right? It doesn't make you anything less of a person. You're the biggest thing is people like, well, I don't want to be seen like I'm not normal. What's normal anyways? Right. Exactly. No one's normal. Yeah, if everyone goes to a therapist, at least everybody would come back with something. You know what I mean? And it's about normalizing it and not making people feel like outcasts.
Right.
That's what I want to say.
Right. Well, you know what I'm going to say is that what we touched on today is that my best friend growing up, you know, Jeff, and God rest his soul, he's passed now. But he was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic when he was 30. He was in medical school. And we had a lot of dreams when we were growing up as kids, you know, and we were excited as we got out of high school. You know, he went on to college, I went on to work, then went to community college, did what I needed to do. And, you know, we're looking forward to the opportunity that we were going to, you know, have kids, our wives, get married, have kids, and our kids would play together, we'd travel together. So for when he got diagnosed with schizophrenia, it started coming on, but when he was really diagnosed, he was 30, but it started when he was like 29, a little bit when he was 28, when he just entered medical school. And it was almost like a death to me. Like at that moment when he was diagnosed, he became a totally different person. For me, it was a grieving process because it seemed that my best friend died. He was no longer with me. And I didn't think about it. I think about it often, but I didn't think about it today until B and I talked about her mother, and we shared this emotional moment this morning. And it's interesting is that I think back on it now is that, yeah, I wish I would have done more. I wish I could have been a better friend, but I think I did what I had to do. I think I did all I could do. You know, so I feel okay. I feel that he's definitely looking down on us and looking down on me. And I think he's happy with what I've done with my life. I think he's relatively okay with the man I've become. And, because, you know, when you're growing up with your best friend, you're molding each other to be the men that you expect each other to be when you get older. So I think he's okay, you know. You know, and today I smiled a lot thinking about him today, you know, and I owe that to B because I wouldn't have had that conversation. I owe it to this episode and this show we're putting together, you know. And so again, we're everyday people, and that's why we do this podcast, because we do it in a way, and we do it from a perspective from everyday people. You know, you come from a different walk of life than I do. You come from a different walk of life, man, and you're a lot younger than I am. I come from a different walk of life than you guys do, and I'm older than not the both of you, but I'm older than one of you. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and we're not clinical psychologists. Right. And we're not here trying to advocate that everybody should get help or this person shouldn't get help or this person's a weak-minded person. I don't want you taking from this podcast and going to your son and say, you're just a weak-minded kid, get a job. I don't want you to do that. If your son or your daughter says, hey, look, I have some issues, you listen to them and try to get them help. You know, and if you're dealing with a spouse, you know, listen to your spouse. Look at your spouse and say, hey, is there something I can deal with? Is something I can help you with? You know,
give them the support.
Absolutely.
And then today, when I talked to my friend Steve, we're gonna have a segment on him in a little bit, and he's gonna talk about the mental health issues that happen in his family and what he's dealing with, and it becomes such a big thing for your family, and not only the person who is dealing with the mental health issue or even slight depression. I mean, you're not crazy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just that you have something you want to work through, but it affects everybody. If you have 5 people in your household and one person has mental health, that means 6 people are suffering from the same thing. So we have to really find a way to make it more accessible. Because obviously the financial burden on families is too much to bear for some people. You know, obviously, you know, $150 an hour. Like I said, if you make $15 an hour, you have to work a whole damn day to get an hour of session.
And that's not, you don't work minimum wage.
Right. Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. And if you make $25 an hour, homie, you have to work 6 hours, you know, most of your day to pay for that one session. And if you get 2 sessions a week, homie, you got to give up your car or you won't be able to eat. You know what I'm saying? Just to get your mind clear. So
and that's just saying, like, that's not paying for the psychiatrist, because a therapist and psychiatrist, two totally different things.
Right.
You know, and then you throw a program in there. So you say the therapist $150, the psychiatrist is more. It's like what, like $200-$300 an hour?
They're MDs.
So as we close, I will just say thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for sharing. You know, this has been an eye-opening experience for myself and for our audience. And for our audience, you know, we are everyday people. We're just like you. We're just giving you our opinions and our thoughts on how we feel about it. Thank you very much for listening, and this is how we see it through.